Snow whips sideways across the ridge, erasing the world into a wall of white. Your headlamp beam hits nothing but spinning ice crystals, then vanishes like it's swallowed by the sky. You stand alone near a broken line of prayer flags. Your rope is cut, your radio is dead, your team is somewhere out there in the storm. This is your life as a mountain explorer lost in the depths of the Himalayas. And tonight, the mountains feel like they are trying to erase you. If you move, you could walk straight into a cliff or a crevasse. If you stay, the cold will crawl through your layers and shut your body down piece by piece. You taste metal in your mouth and feel the altitude clawing at your lungs, each breath thin and sharp. Behind you, the wind tears a loose glove off your pack and flings it into the dark like a warning. You know that one wrong decision here means no one will ever find your body. This is the story of how your life leads you to this moment and why the mountain decides whether you live or disappear. But your life does not start here. Level 1. First Peaks. You grow up on flat land in a small town where the only hills are highway ramps and construction piles. You spend more time staring at photos in old travel magazines than looking at your own neighborhood. Snowy ridges, endless glaciers, tiny tents under impossible cliffs. Those images live in your head like secret portals. You are the kid who tapes a map of the Himalayas above your bed, the names of peaks circling in your mind as you fall asleep. You hear adults talking about safe careers, steady paychecks, normal futures, and you politely nod while imagining ice axes and rope coils instead. Every winter, you drag friends outside to climb icy staircases and frozen playgrounds, pretending the rusted metal is rock covered in rime. One day, a documentary plays on TV, showing exhausted climbers moving one step at a time near a brutal summit in Nepal, and you feel something click. They are coughing, crying, barely able to stand, but when they reach the top, something in their eyes looks like freedom. You realize you don't want a safe life, you want that feeling, whatever it costs. Your parents warn you that mountains are dangerous, that people die up there. But the more they talk, the more your fascination turns into a quiet obsession. You start keeping a notebook where you list peaks, elevations, and stories of climbers who made it and climbers who never came back. Every time you write another name, you feel the distance between your flat hometown and those brutal heights getting smaller. You are no longer just a kid with a daydream. You are someone who has silently chosen a path that scares the people who love you. Level 2. Training Ground. You do not jump straight into the Himalayas. You start with what you have. Small local climbs on crumbly cliffs and short rock routes that chew up your hands. You save every bit of money you can, skip parties, pick up extra shifts, all to pay for basic mountaineering courses. Your first real class takes place in a damp valley with cold wind slicing through your jacket, and an instructor showing you how to tie knots until your fingers go numb. You learn how to read avalanche terrain, how to kick solid steps into steep snow, how to recover from a fall before it turns into a fatal slide. The first time you slip and slam your ice axe into the slope, your heart spikes and you realize how thin the line is between control and disaster. You meet other students who treat the mountains like a hobby, but for you, every lesson feels like training for your entire future. On a multi-day course, you camp on a glacier for the first time, the tent walls glowing orange as the stove hisses and distant ice cracks in the dark. When you step outside to pee at night, the stars feel close enough to touch, and the silence is so deep it makes you dizzy. You breathe, and you know this environment is where you belong, even if it tries to kill you. At the end of the course, your instructor tells you that you have talent, but warns that talent does not beat altitude, weather, or bad judgment. He says the mountains do not care how strong or passionate you are. You take that warning seriously. but you also feel a stubborn confidence growing, a belief that with enough training, you can bend the risk into something you can manage. You go home, look at the map above your bed, and for the first time, you don't just want those peaks, you believe you will stand on them. Level 3. First Himalayas. Your first trip to the Himalayas comes sooner than anyone expects. You sign up as an assistant for a trekking group in Nepal, a low-budget job with long days, heavy loads, and no glamour. You land in Kathmandu, and the chaos of traffic, color, and noise makes your hometown feel like a faded photo. You find yourself weaving through markets stacked with knockoff gear, real gear, prayer flags, and the smell of incense and diesel mixing in the air. When you finally sit in a small tea house with other guides, the conversation is all about routes, passes, and people who disappeared in storms. You listen more than you talk, soaking up every story like a student in a class with no syllabus. On the trek, you hike valley after valley, the river far below roaring loud enough to drown out your thoughts. You watch clients struggle with simple inclines while you carry extra weight, testing your legs and lungs against thin air. At a high village, an older local guide takes you aside and points at a ridge laced with cornices, telling you how a small group once walked under those snow overhangs and never came back. The idea of whole lives ending in one bad decision hits you harder than any lecture back home. You wake up one morning with a headache, nausea, and a weird sense of floating, your first real brush with altitude sickness. You slow your pace, drink water, and hum quietly to steady yourself, realizing your body has limits that passion cannot erase. At night, you lie in your sleeping bag listening to distant avalanches rumble far up the valley, invisible but heavy enough to make the ground shiver. You begin to understand that this world is not a backdrop for your ambitions. It is an active force that can rearrange or end your story at any moment. By the time you return home, your love for the mountains is sharper and more honest, filtered through the realization that you could have easily been one of those lost names. Level 4. Professional risk. You come back to the Himalayas not as an assistant, but as a full mountain explorer, guiding expeditions and planning routes. You earn certifications, stack experience, and slowly build a reputation as someone who can get people up high and bring them back down alive. With reputation comes pressure. Clients want summits, sponsors want photos, and local agencies want success stories that attract more business. You sit in dim lodges with weather charts spread across tables, radios crackling with updates that never feel clear enough. The central Himalayas are known for brutal avalanche risk that has killed hundreds of climbers over the decades, a fact that hangs in the room like a second language everyone quietly understands. You walk through base camps and see memorial plaques and prayer flags wrapped around rocks. Each name is another reminder that statistics are made of real bodies. On one expedition, a client pushes for a higher camp despite clear signs of fresh snow loading the slope above. You stand there, ice axe in hand, and choose to turn them back, knowing it will cost you money and maybe future bookings. They accuse you of fear, of being too cautious. But days later, a slab breaks loose on the same face, sending a wall of snow crashing down the route you refuse to climb. You do not feel vindicated. You feel sick, imagining what it would have looked like if you had given in. On another trip, you watch a more aggressive team push through a marginal forecast, disappearing into cloud while their radios buzzed with nervous jokes. That night, you see their headlamps flicker far above, then vanish, and hours later hear the distant thud of an avalanche rolling through a side valley. They make it back battered but alive, and you listen as they brag about beating the odds. You quietly notice how their hands shake as they talk. Your own role grows heavier. You are not just chasing peaks anymore, you're balancing lives against weather windows, making calls that could turn strangers into casualties. Every summit you help deliver now carries a shadow, the weight of all the times the mountain could have said no but didn't. Level 5. Obsession Route. After years of guiding safer lines, you feel a pull towards a more serious challenge. There is one peak, less famous than the giant names but feared by those who know its history, with a complex face rarely climbed. The route traces through hanging seracs, broken glaciers, and steep exposed ridges that seem designed to punish arrogance. You study photos, reports, old maps, and sparse trip logs, trying to understand the pattern of storms and collapses on that face. Sudden snowstorms and fresh snow can spin into whiteouts that disorient even experienced trekkers, and on this mountain, those storms arrive faster than forecasts predict. You start training harder, long solo runs at altitude, ice climbing until your forearms burn, crevice rescue drills until you can rig systems half asleep. Your friends call you obsessed, and they are not entirely wrong. You turn down easier guiding gigs, preferring to stay close to the region of this peak, watching it from nearby valleys, learning its moods. At home, your family hears less from you. Calls get shorter, messages stay unanswered, and you avoid questions about long-term plans or settling into a calmer life. You meet a small team of like-minded climbers, people who are tired of crowded routes and commercial ladders and want something pure and brutal. Together, you plan an expedition with minimal support, light gear, and a route that demands sharp judgment every hour. You mark potential camps on a photo, tiny dots on steep slopes where a bad night could turn fatal. You promise yourself you will prioritize safety over glory, but there is a part of you that still imagines the headline and the story of a bold new route. The tension between responsibility and ambition becomes a quiet storm inside you long before any real clouds rise around the mountain. On the eve of departure, you sit outside a lodge, staring at the silhouette of the peak against a washed-out sky, and feel something like a warning. You choose to ignore it, convincing yourself that preparation and experience are enough. That decision, to trust your readiness over your fear, pushes you into the level where everything collides. Level 6. Lost in the whiteout. You start the summit push in the thin blue of pre-dawn, crampons biting into hard snow, breath already short. Your team moves in a slow, controlled rhythm, headlamps carving tunnels of light through the dim air. The world feels narrow but predictable, until small crystals begin to sting your cheeks and you notice the wind shifting angles. At first, it seems like normal mountain weather, a minor change you have seen countless times. You keep going, telling yourself that turning back at the first sign of trouble would be overreaction. Within an hour, the sky turns from pale blue to a flat, angry gray, and the snow thickens into a curtain. Radio reports crackle with mixed messages, some saying the storm will pass, others warning that it's building faster than expected. You decide to push to a safer ridge where you think you can reassess, but the visibility drops so quickly that your world shrinks to the length of your rope. Your front climber stops and points toward a slope that appears smoother than you remember from photos. It takes you a few seconds to realize you are standing near the edge of a hidden drop. You reroute, heart pounding, and feel the storm clawing at your judgment, turning simple navigation into guesswork. Pain starts in your temples, a familiar high-altitude headache that usually means you need rest and more oxygen. There is nowhere to rest that feels safe. Snow builds up on your hood, your goggles fog, and your gloves soak from brushing against rough ice. You try to check your map, but the paper flaps uselessly in the wind, and your GPS struggles to lock onto satellites in the swirling storm. Your team's voices become distant, broken by gusts, and you feel the rope twitch as someone stumbles behind you. You yell for everyone to stay close, to keep tension, to move carefully, but you know communication is dissolving in the noise. A sudden blast knocks you sideways, your boot slipping on a patch of hidden ice. Your axe catches the slope, but the shock rips the rope against a sharp rock, and you feel it go slack. You shout for your partner, but there is no answer, just the roar of wind and the hum of your own blood. For a moment, panic floods your brain, a wave of images of bodies buried under snow, names on plaques, headlines about another lost expedition. Guides drill into you one rule for disaster: Find shelter, even a rock overhang or a rough snow cave, before the cold strips away your strength. You scan the white chaos around you, searching for any shape that looks like protection instead of annihilation. You spot a slight dark curve in the slope, maybe a small rock band, maybe just a trick of your terrified mind. You choose to move towards it, alone. Your thighs burn, your lungs scrape, and your fingers lose fine control as cold seeps in deeper. You stumble, almost drive your leg into a hole, then swing away just in time, heart spiking so hard you feel dizzy. Reaching the dark curve, you realize it is a shallow overhang, barely enough to break the direct force of the wind. You scrape at the snow below it with your axe, carving a small hollow, a crude shelter that feels like a desperate prayer. You crawl into it, knees to chest, back against rock, snow piling up at the entrance, turning your world into a small icy cave. Time blurs. You count breaths, force yourself to wiggle fingers and toes, fight the desire to sleep. Images of your family flash through your mind, their last messages, their warnings, their hope that you would always come back. You wonder if this is where your story ends, not on a summit, but in a hidden pocket of snow that no one will ever reach. At some point, the roar outside shifts, losing a bit of its edge, like the mountain is slowly exhaling. You push snow away from the entrance and look out into a world still white, but slightly less violent. A faint glow hints at a break in the clouds, and in the distance, you see a weak flickering headlamp moving like a ghost across the face. You know staying there will eventually kill you, and stepping out might kill you faster. You make the decision anyway. You crawl out, stand shaky, and move towards that tiny light, choosing motion over slow erasure. Every step feels like walking through the consequence of every choice you've ever made about mountains, risk, and who you wanted to be. Level 7. Aftermath in the thin air. You do not remember exactly how you reach your remaining teammates, only fragments of shouting, pulling, and stumbling. Together, you descend in jagged stages, using brief lulls in the storm to drop altitude, following half-buried flags in memory more than clear landmarks. Rescue does not come as a dramatic helicopter in perfect weather. It comes as exhausted local guides trudging up a safer ridge days later, finding you huddled in a disturbed tent at lower camp. Your face is raw from frostbite, fingertips tingling in ways that hint at damage, but you are alive. Not everyone on the mountain that season gets the same ending. In the weeks after, you sit in hospitals and guest houses, staring at bandages and trying to process the silence from those who won't be messaging you again. News reports call your survival a narrow escape, a reminder of the rising risks as storms in the Himalayas grow more unpredictable with time. People message you saying you are lucky, resilient, meant to climb, meant to lead. You do not feel lucky or heroic at all. You feel heavy. You replay every decision that led to the storm, the route choice, the timing, the pressure you let in, the warning you ignored on that lodge night. Sponsors want your story. Agencies want to use your experience as proof that good training can beat bad weather. Some days you start to believe them. Other days you cannot stand the thought of tying into a rope again. You visit base camps and memorial stones, run your gloved fingers over carved names, and question whether your presence up high adds anything to the world except more risk. Eventually, you return to the mountains, but not in the same way. You take fewer clients, refuse marginal forecasts more aggressively, and speak openly about turning back as a mark of strength, not failure. You become the guide who tells young climbers that the real summit is being able to walk out of the valley and call home. Your life as a mountain explorer lost in the Himalayas does not end with triumph on a peak. It ends with a quiet understanding of how fragile your existence is whenever you step above the clouds. As you stand one evening on a lower ridge, watching the sun set behind a jagged horizon of ice and rock, you feel both love and fear for these mountains. You know that every future step you take up here will carry the memory of that whiteout, that cave, That moment when the mountain almost kept you, and you accept that this is who you are now, not just a climber chasing summits, but a survivor who lives with the thin line between awe and disappearance.